Is any of this, is it?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. Sorry to give you that hard time.
I guess the only issue on this is if, when he's up, when this is up, he can, if he's not testifying to it, you may want to have it down just so we can see the
That's fine.
witness. Ready whenever that.
Deputy Lusty, is it deputy, is that right?
Yes, sir.
I'm Jeff Lawson, I represent David Dooley.
Yes, sir.
How long did you say you were on the force in Warsaw?
2.5 years.
2.5 years?
Yes, sir.
And then you moved to Boone County in what year?
I went to the city of Carrollton.
City of Carrollton from
Yes,
there?
sir, for 4 years, and then I came up here in 2000. And I started with the Boone County County Police, and I was with them for maybe 8 months, 9 months, and then we merged into the Sheriff's Department.
So you've been with the Boone County Sheriff's Department since the beginning?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So all told, how long have you been an officer?
24 years.
24 years?
Yes, sir.
In 24 years, I'm sure you've seen a lot of things being an officer for that long.
Yes, sir.
Had you ever encountered a scene like this one?
No, sir.
This large?
No, sir, I don't believe so.
When you walked in that morning, you had received only a limited amount of information from dispatch.
Yes.
That's true?
Yes, sir.
They told you, excuse me, that it was a suspected homicide,
Yes.
and that, I believe, did they even tell you that it was on the second floor?
I can't remember. I don't remember if they said it was on the second floor or where they said it.
So you knew you were showing up to a facility, you knew that it was a potential homicide,
Yes, sir.
and that's essentially the information you had.
Yes, sir, that was it.
So you don't know when you're walking in there if it was a shooting,
Correct.
or
No idea.
you have no idea what happened.
Correct.
So safe to say, when you walked in, your gun was drawn.
When we first went through the front doors, I don't know if our guns were drawn then. I believe when she said, or whoever the lady was pointing upstairs, I believe we took our weapons out then and proceeded upstairs.
Okay. So you didn't perceive a threat there in the
No,
first level.
we didn't see anything that would that seemed to be a threat at that time.
And so when you walked in, when the lady said upstairs, that's when you and Officer Gregory, or Deputy Gregory, just went straight up the stairs.
Yes.
You didn't spend any time looking around in the area immediately around that lobby?
No, sir.
Okay. So you didn't open up any doors, any hallways, or
No,
anything
sir.
like that? Okay. Okay. When you walked upstairs, I think you said you looked out the window onto the mezzanine level.
Yes, sir.
And it's at that point that you saw a body on the floor.
Yes, sir.
Safe to say that your area of the crime scene, as far as you're concerned, is that area
Yes,
alone. It's that area alone.
Correct.
So you have a facility. Let me actually ask the witness to step down if he might.
You may.
Does this photograph accurately depict what you know is scientific?
Yes, sir.
When you came in, let's just start here. You parked.
Judge, can we approach? I don't think that the other.
That's what I was going to say. You may
Yeah.
want to.
They can't see, and they can't even see it from that angle, I don't think.
Can you see?
Kind of glare, there's a light glare.
Why don't we turn part of the lights on? We'll make to be able to turn a little bit.
That's,
That make it better?
that's better.
Okay.
She can't see.
Can you see it right there?
Yes.
Can you see?
Yes, as long as you
Just-
say that.
I'm going to try to stay out of your way.
Yeah.
So it's safe to say when you came in, you parked somewhere along this road here?
Yes, sir. We came up and we parked up in this area.
Up in that area?
Front there. Yes, front door.
Okay. And you walked into, this is the door that you had referenced? This is the door you had referenced to the jury?
Yes, sir.
And then when you walked in?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so then you walk up the stairs. This second floor office area is kind of this general area of the building?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So as far as the rest of this entire facility, are you concerned, you're not concerned at that point in time about any of the rest of that?
No, sir.
And so you can't control who leaves or who goes at that point in time?
Correct.
You don't know if any of these doors or any of these dock doors here where these trucks are parked, you don't know if those doors are open or closed?
No, sir.
You don't know if these doors are unlocked, the door here is unlocked?
No, sir.
A door at the rear of the facility, you wouldn't have checked that either?
No, sir.
So you can go back. Did you even know at that time that there was a second business in the facility?
No, sir.
So you have your concentration, again, to ask you the question, is just on the immediate area where you found that body.
Yes, sir.
With two deputies that are there in the first few minutes while you're there by yourself, you are concerned about securing that immediate area.
Yes, sir.
You walked into the office area of the building,
Yes, sir.
and you checked that immediate area as well.
Yes.
When you walked in, after you finished that and you completed that, you met with the employee you described as Ed.
Yes, sir.
And Ed was on the phone with dispatch at that time.
I don't remember if he was on the phone or not.
Okay. Did you testified in your direct testimony that you didn't see, you said any suspects? True?
True.
Is it also true that you didn't know exactly what to look for?
Correct.
I mean,
That a person, yes.
right.
We didn't have no idea who to look for.
Okay. I'm going to approach the witness, Your Honor.
Okay? As long as the Commonwealth showed Commonwealth what you hear there.
Yes.
These are in.
These are all taken at the time. No, that's not the one he took. It's in there.
You may. So we need all stickers? Yes. Yeah, can stickers.
No, just what's on that.
I'll get it. Here you go.
Take a look at this one.
Yes, sir.
Judge, I'm going to mark these as Defense 1, Collective Exhibit.
Judge, could we approach just real quick?
You may. That will be,
These photographs is 2?
there'll be two. Okay, then the arrow will be one.
Yes.
Okay.
Eventually, one foot.
Deputy Lusty, does this, you stated in your testimony that when you turned, you came up the stairwell
Yes, sir.
and you turned to the left.
Yes, sir.
Does this accurately depict the area that you saw at that time?
Yes, sir.
This photograph also?
Yes, sir.
Does that depict the area of the door that you walked into?
Yes, sir.
What's the number of the photograph referring to? Collective 2. Okay.
This photograph as well, also Collective 2.
Yes, sir.
Could you, number 3, could you
move the
tripod?
Oh,
Your Honor, can we approach?
There's a glare.
I have no idea why there's a glare.
It may just be
it's not the lights glare.
sorry, Judge. The,
This one will be Court Judge, I'll mark that. This photograph also, Deputy Lusty, is that fairly and accurately depicting what you saw?
Yes,
You can't see.
Hold on.
Yeah, it might be
Yeah,
because
it's
there's so many
that-
lights on.
It's like too dark.
That's what I'm saying. Give me the other one. That's the back one. And there's that one. See if it takes a little back. There you go. Put your
When you
picture.
turn to the left, did you see a large open area of a warehouse?
yes,
Okay, thank you. Did you check behind any big pallets or stacks or anything like that?
yes, sir. On the mezzanine, we checked everything around that, used our flashlights to look to see, and we were looking for people, other victims, the perpetrator, or any obvious signs of evidence.
Okay. When you walked in the hallway, did you see, that's what you said you saw blood on the, well, you said in the hallway on the floor?
In front of the door, there was blood going up to the door. And then we just basically followed the blood to see if there was if that blood belonged to another victim. And we went through, and then you could see blood, looked to be small blood stains on the carpet.
Okay. Did you see any blood on the walls or on any vertical surface?
I don't remember seeing any.
Okay. Take other calls, is that
Yes.
true? You reduced everything that you saw that day and everything you did to a report.
Yes, sir.
And you wanted that report to be true and accurate as to what you did that day.
Correct.
So you put all the details about what you did in it.
Yes, sir.
And that's so that you could recall it. And I think you actually reviewed your report
Yes, sir.
earlier in your testimony.
Yes, sir, I did.
And that's the report you made that day, and you actually wrote it that day.
Yes, sir.
That's all the questions I have, Judge.
Needs from Felmo?
These are better photos.
You have nothing further.
Thank you, Judge.
Is this witness subject to any recall?
Not by the Commonwealth.
Could he be subject to any recall for the defense? Mr. Dennison or Mr. Lawson? Could he be subject to any recall? Is he subject?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. I'm just going to not discuss your testimony with anyone, but you are excused.
Thank you.
Judge Commonwealth calls to the stand Major David Stallsworth.
Judge, may we approach for the witness?
We'll come up to the witness stand. I'll swear you. Solemnly swear affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes, sir.
Yes, okay.
Thank you, Judge. Major, correct? Major Stallsworth?
Yes.
Okay. I think we've heard you earlier today refer to as Sergeant Stallsworth. Today we're Major, correct?
That is correct.
Introduce yourself, please, to the jury.
My name is David Stallsworth. I'm currently with the Boone County Sheriff's Office, and my rank is Major. And my last assignment was over the Criminal Investigations Division.
And so you're still currently employed by the Boone County Sheriff's Office.
That is correct.
Walk us through your resume, your training experience, education, and how long you've been a police officer.
So I'm in my 22nd year of civilian law enforcement. Before that, I was 5 years with the military police and the Army. My training began in '97 when I went through the basic training academy with actually the Boone County Police. We had two different agencies back then. We had the Boone County Police, and then we had the Sheriff's Office, and then we ended up merging. So I originally started with the Boone County Police Department. I was a patrolman. Once the merger happened, and I believe around 2001, I was promoted to the rank of sergeant. Once I was promoted to the rank of sergeant, went through some training. One was APS, which is Academy of Police Supervision. And then I believe it was think 2007, I actually went to a 10-week course put on by Northwestern. It's the School of Police Staff and Command, which is just another, I guess, a higher level of training, more administrative duties. It's what you learn in this class. So then in around, can't remember when I got promoted again to lieutenant. That might have been around 2017, I guess. And then shortly thereafter, I was promoted to the rank of major. Did the majority of my career in patrol, and then did some undercover investigations with scrap metal thefts, and was able to get into investigations. That was kind of like the catapult that put me into investigations that way. From there, kind of the rest was history. So that's kind of where I've ended my career, was in investigations and over the criminal investigations division. So that's me in a snapshot.
If I followed you correctly, back in May of 2012, you would have been a sergeant. Is that correct?
That is correct.
What was your assignment in May of 2012?
I was assigned a day shift, which is our shift. It's from 7 o'clock in the morning till 5 o'clock in the afternoon. That's what we routinely refer to as day shift.
Was there a particular assignment that you had? Were you a patrol guy? Were you a criminal investigative guy? Or was it just you were a day shift sergeant?
At that particular time, I didn't have a specific beat, if you will, or district that I had to work. So as a sergeant in patrol, essentially I would have been able to go all across the county. Just my responsibilities would have been those that were under my command for that particular shift and that day.
Well, I want to take you specifically to May 29th of 2012. Do you recall that day?
I do.
Okay. And I want to take you to, let's say, 7 a.m. Okay. Where would you have been around 7 a.m. on that day?
I would have been at Burlington at our office for what we would have as roll call. Roll call is just a meeting before the shift, kind of go over some specific details for the day, any assignments that need to be handled day.
What we're going to do today, let's sort it out now. And
Any extra patrols that we need to provide, any areas of extra traffic enforcement, if that's what we need to do for the day.
Major, were you dispatched to Thermo Fisher Scientific that morning?
Yes, I actually called clear on the call.
What's that mean?
From my memory, so the dispatch, they put out a call. Usually they will start with the officers that are actually assigned to that district where the call is, but on some calls I can actually call clear or assign myself to the call. I believe I called clear on that when I was in roll call.
Okay. And so did you, at that point, did you go to Thermo Fisher Scientific?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Was anyone with you?
I don't remember anybody specifically with me leaving the office that day, but eventually I met up with a few officers.
Okay. And where did you meet up with them?
The first officer I believe I came in contact with was around 42 in Weaver. I believe that was Deputy Shannon Taylor.
Right.
Once I arrived on the scene, there was a couple officers that were already on the scene. One was Deputy Joe Gregory, and the other one was Deputy Anthony Lusty.
Okay. And we've already heard from Anthony Lusty. So to your understanding, those were the first two officers on the scene, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And do you get briefed by them of what's going on?
Yes, once I get on scene.
And what information did you have available to you at that time?
The information that came out briefly when the call was being dispatched, there was an employee down, woman down, and hands were behind her on the at this particular building. So that was just the initial information that I had until I actually got on scene and was able to converse with both deputies Lusty and Gregory. Sorry.
And Gregory.
Yes.
Correct. Which you did, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Well, just kind of walk us through the steps. You're now on scene. You've been briefed about what's going on. You're aware now that there's a potential homicide, correct?
Correct.
Okay, walk us through what you decided to do.
This is a scene, it's number one, fortunately, I guess these crime scenes that we have don't happen very often. So when I arrived on scene, there's a lot of things that are going through your head, especially in my position, because there's obviously the first and foremost, there's a safety issue. And there's other people that are still in this building, employees being able to decipher what's thrown at you, if you will, can be rather large, I guess. So first and foremost is, just the safety aspect. I have to protect, obvious evidence, the crime scene, but also I have to be cognizant of the safety of, people that are still in the building. So my decisions, I'm trying to gather as much information as I can to be able to start making some decisions moving forward.
So you're the commanding officer at this point, correct?
At the scene, yes.
And you have a sum total of 3 people helping you. Is that right?
Deputy Shannon Taylor was actually with me, so there was a total of 4.
Well, including you, counting you.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
So 3 people
Yes.
helping you. That would be Taylor, Gregory, and
And
Lusty.
Lusty, yes.
Okay. And this has already been introduced. This is Commonwealth Exhibit 3. What does that look like?
Looks like an overhead shot of the building that we responded to that day.
You've got 3 assisting officers. This is a large space to have to secure, correct?
It is what ended up being.
Do you recall how you made entrance into the building? And you can step down if you need.
Okay. So,
Chuck, I don't think they were jurisdiction, so there you go.
over in this area here, this is the main drive that I came in, which I guess would be on the west side of the building. That's Empire Drive, the drive that you see kind of in the left corner, upper corner. So I would have come down this road. This is where the other police cruisers were at the time, which is kind of the front of the building. That's where I would have made entry that particular day.
Were you able to make entry?
No. So what I remember is there's a couple sets of doors. You have an inner and an outer door that's at this particular entrance. And you could get through the outermost doors, but once you got into the interior door, you had to have some sort of like a key card or a key fob or something to be let in unless an employee had let you in.
Major, excuse me, because I should have asked this 10 minutes ago. What time did you actually arrive on the scene?
I think I was dispatched around 7:20, and I think it was around 7:30. That's my
About 10
memory.
minutes later.
Yeah.
So about 10 minutes later, those doors are locked. You can't get in unless someone lets you in, right?
Correct.
Okay, and did someone let you in?
Yes.
Do you recall who it was?
It was a female. I would describe her maybe in her mid-50s, kind of lighter hair.
Did you get any information from her?
When I first talked to her, I just wanted to know essentially where my guys were that were on the scene. I'm not familiar with the scene at all, so I just needed some instruction because I wanted to get to them first and foremost to find out exactly what they had.
Okay, and did you find your guys?
Yes.
And they briefed you?
Yes.
And what decision did you make at that point?
So there was, based on what I found and once, conversing quickly with Lusty and Gregory that were on scene, the decisions were made to protect the immediate, what I would consider the immediate crime scene, the best that we could. So it was a little bit of divide and conquer just based on what I had at the time. So I had to place those deputies in the areas that I felt like were going to provide the best protection of that crime scene area until more units could arrive to where we could expand at the time.
I'll show you some marked as Commonwealth Exhibit 13. Recognize that area?
I do.
Okay. What are we looking at here?
That is a picture of the upper mezzanine level where the victim was lying.
Okay. And the decision is made, and I was kind of gathering some pictures while you were testifying. You need to secure this immediate area, correct?
Yes.
And how did you do that? What decisions did you make?
Deputy Gregory, I assigned him, there was, when you came into the building, there was a set of stairs that you had to traverse up to get to that upper mezzanine level. I placed Deputy Gregory at those steps. I did not want anybody coming up those steps. And then I took Deputy Shannon Taylor, and I had him stage actually on the mezzanine level, adjacent to where the victim was, kind of in that doorway that we came out just to reach that part of the mezzanine. And then Deputy Lusty, I placed him in a set of offices, or in this office area that's on the upper mezzanine level. And again, it's trying to place strategically deputies where I think they could afford the best protection at the time.
To protect the scene?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, what did you do at that point?
There was still an area that I think going into this was an area of concern, and this was more for, Deputy Lusty. I think I wanted to make sure that that office area that I was going to put him in was as clear as we could make it at that point. I wasn't going to leave somebody in there and then have something happen or just not check the immediate area. I just didn't want some sort of incident to happen. So after leaving Shannon Taylor, on the mezzanine level itself, then Deputy Lusty and I actually went into this office space to check out that area just to make sure that where he was going to be posted was safe.
Was that on the second floor as well?
That is, it's right off the mezzanine level.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as Commonwealth Exhibit number 12. Just kind of familiarize yourself with this.
Okay.
Does that make sense to you?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Now, you said you put Deputy Taylor, and you can point here if you like. Where did you put Deputy Taylor?
So this is the door that we would have exited to get to this upper mezzanine level. This is the stairwell that Deputy Joe Gregory was on. Shannon Taylor would have been in this area here, and then this is a door that Deputy Lusty and myself would have went through to gain access to this this area here, which is the upper office level of this kind of mezzanine area. That I was referencing to.
And so that you were sort of inspecting that area, correct?
The best we could.
Did
Yes.
you make any observations?
Yes, there was a couple observations that we had made.
What were those observations?
Once we got into the hallway and into the office area, there appeared to be a large spot, red spot at the kind of at the base of a wall, if you will. I would consider it to be a fairly decent size amount. And then there was, looking further into the office area, one of the doors to the offices looked like it had fresh pry marks that were not consistent with any other door in the area. Two areas that I felt like stood out to me to be, and this is kind of on the fly, but two areas that I felt like were important to protect.
Okay, after you made your inspection of the second floor offices and you made those observations, what did you do after that?
Once I felt like it was okay to leave Lusty, in that particular area, I made my way back down to the lower level, as I needed to find the plant manager at that time.
Did you find him?
Yes, ultimately, I did come across him.
And do you recall his name?
Ed?
Did you talk to Ed?
I did.
Okay, what was Ed's demeanor?
He was upset. He had a obvious, just visually, you could tell he was upset.
And during this process, were any instructions given to the employees at Thermo Fisher?
Ultimately, there was a couple, there was an all-call that was done by somebody where the employees that were in the building were coming towards the front of the sections that were, later on down the, into this, where we had gotten to.
So the employees are starting to congregate in the front area of the office, of the building, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
to the best of my knowledge.
You're talking to Ed.
Yes.
What'd you do after that?
After speaking to Ed, there was, and again, just trying to gather as much and protect as much in a scene like this where I still don't know the enormity of it, I guess. After some of the statements that Ed had made to me, I felt it important that there's 3 people that I needed to separate because I wanted their statements that they were ultimately going to have to give. I didn't want them to be tainted, I guess, or commingled. I felt like it was important.
Unusual if you think 3 people have seen something to separate them so that they don't get their stories interwoven together, correct?
No, I would say that's not uncommon. You want people to be able to give their statement based on what they remember, what they recollect.
And not what the group thinks, right?
Correct.
Okay, so who were the people that you decided needed to be separated?
One was Ed.
Why Ed, by the way?
Ed was one of the ones, I guess, that had actually discovered a couple areas. Ed made the statement that he had seen the spot and then had further investigated because he made the statement that they didn't know if somebody had cut themselves on the floor. It's a packaging company, so once they saw that red spot that was on the floor in that hallway on the upper level, him and the maintenance, then they basically started to investigate further, and that's when they came across the victim.
Okay, so that's why we separate Ed.
Yes.
Who else did you separate from the group?
The gentleman that was listed as maintenance, he was separated, and then there was a third, David Dooley was listed as a janitor. He was another person that I wanted to separate.
And how come?
Ed had made the statement that I believe that they had gotten to work around 6:45, but the other employees had gotten there around 5, best I remember. And David had made a statement to Ed, and this is according to Ed, but David had made a statement to Ed that
Objection, Judge.
Let's without getting into what someone else said, if you can
I'm
answer,
sorry.
if you can answer the question, let me ask you this: if I could have just a little liberty here, Judge, based upon your conversations with the witnesses at the scene, you made the decision to separate these 3 people out, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and David Dooley was one of those 3, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Let me ask you: were there any observations that you made of Mr. Dooley when you asked that he be separated from the rest of the group?
Mr. Dooley acted a little, resistant at first. He didn't appear to want to leave the rest of the group of employees that were gathering again in that front lobby area. he had made the statement to me that he was upset, and that, well, it took a little bit of reassuring of what my intent was at that particular time to put him where I needed him or separate him from the rest of the group.
Okay, and ultimately, you got everyone separated. You got the people you wanted separated, correct?
Correct.
What'd you do after that?
After that, I went back out to check on the employees that were out in that lobby area. At some point, we needed more people. I think it's one of these scenes where you're at and you're waiting for the cavalry to come. There's a lot to it. There's a lot of pieces that you could see, which is, as a patrol supervisor, you want the cavalry to come and to help you out with this, and that's trying to get more people there that I can with the resources that we had at that particular day, and really just make sure that cavalry was coming.
Okay, and so you put out an all-points bulletin to get more officers to the scene, correct?
I can't remember if it was over the radio or over the phone. A call that comes across the radio such as this, there's others that are listening to the radio and they hear the same information. This isn't a call that comes across the radio very often, very frequently. So how they actually got word, that we were kind of in what we were in, I don't know.
Okay. Did you have occasion to go back into the office area?
I did.
Okay, what were your observations?
I witnessed Mr. Dooley had left the area that I had asked him to stay, so I had to ask him to kind of go back to the area in a chair that I had set for him.
And did he agree to do that?
To my memory, yes.
Okay. Did you notice anybody on their phones?
There was a point where I walked out into the lobby and I noticed that there was quite a few employees that were on their phones that were in the lobby. So yes.
Okay. And did you give any instructions based on that observation?
I asked everybody to remain off their phones unless it was an absolute emergency. And if they needed to make a phone call, then they could get with Deputy Gregory, who was there in the immediate area. He was still staged in that stairwell.
Just out of curiosity, why did you instruct them not to use their phone?
Again, this is a scene that is just complex, I guess. It's not something that you would necessarily run into. I know that there's still a facility that we haven't even gotten to yet. We've kind of controlled the best we can the areas that we had at the point or that moment in time. But what I didn't want was people calling out, telling others what's going on, or any rumors or make any statements which would draw even more people to the scene. That's not. I didn't want the information to get out because of the security of the scene, and I didn't want more people coming in unless we controlled that at the time.
And ultimately, did additional investigators arrive?
Yes.
How much longer would you estimate?
Honestly, I don't know if I could put my thumb on it.
Let me ask you
15,
this.
20, 25 minutes.
Okay, you weren't waiting hours.
No, sir.
Okay, you were waiting a matter of minutes.
Correct.
And do you recall who it was who showed up?
The first people that I remember showing up on the scene was Major Ben Huff, which at the time was the criminal investigations commander. Lieutenant Jim Wagner. He was a lieutenant in investigations at the time.
Does he go by another name?
Rocky.
Okay.
That's He goes by Rocky.
All right.
And then Detective Bruce McVeigh was in that group. And then our public information officer, Tom Shaven, was in that group.
Okay, so they show up. At some point, does authority of the scene transfer from you to someone else?
Yes, once criminal investigation shows up on the scene, then they immediately take command and control of that scene. It's their investigation, so they get to call the shots at that point. My role at that point, other than my guys that were still there, any request that the investigations commanders, whether it been Major Huff or Rocky, Jim Wagner, we would have just tried to assist them the best we could, because we still had our responsibilities as far as maintaining the security of the crime scene that we had.
So your assignment changed, did it not?
Yes, it did.
Okay, and what do you do at that point?
Once they got on scene, myself and Deputy Shannon Taylor, who was staged at the upper mezzanine level, rather, it became our responsibility to go and just do a search, quick search of the warehouse facility areas, those areas that we hadn't covered yet, and we hadn't had an opportunity to cover yet, just because of manpower issues.
Okay, and did y'all make any observations?
Rather large area, probably larger than what I had even realized, I guess, once I got on scene. But in doing so, the place, was still open for business. There was a couple doors in the back, kind of shipping and receiving area that were open. So we tried to secure the doors, around the perimeter the best we could.
And at this point, all the employees had been summoned to the office area of the warehouse, correct?
To the best of my knowledge, yes.
Did you see any other employees working at that time?
Not in that immediate area that we were looking.
Okay, and did you see anything of any evidentiary value, something that could have been used as a weapon or bloody footprints, anything like that?
Not on that search, no.
You mentioned you did see some doors that were not secure. What kind of doors were they?
The ones that we first came across would have been, if you can think of just large garage doors, for lack of better terms. Shipping and receiving in a manufacturing warehouse, they have large doors that they open up. They're on metal tracks, just like your residential house garage door, for the best explanation of it. So some of those doors were open, so we would try to close those and lock those to the best of our ability.
Was there a door that you were unable to manually secure?
There was.
Describe that, please.
My best memory was it was on the side of a building. It wasn't along those doors. If you ever drive past a warehouse, got a bunch of garage doors, it wasn't in that group. It was on a wall that appeared to separate this business from another. There was a couple doors that we came across there, one that had my interest.
Do you know what that other business is called?
I believe it's Beckman Coulter.
Okay, and it's contained in the same warehouse space as Thermo Fisher, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And
Same building, yes.
same building, but it's divided, correct?
Yes, best I remember.
So there was a door between those two businesses that caught your eye.
Yes.
Okay, and what did you do to that? What did you do to secure that area?
Again, with the doors, I'm trying to secure the doors along the perimeter that we can. This particular door that we came across, large door, bigger than a pedestrian door that I remember, but we were not able to secure that because of it was almost like a conveyor or something that prohibited the door to go all the way down. So I ended up having to leave Deputy Shannon Taylor at that door, again, to ensure the safety and security.
And was he subsequently relieved by someone else?
Ultimately, yes, he was.
Okay, do you know who that was?
At the time, it was Deputy Mike Preston.
At any point, did you do an exterior search of the warehouse?
Yes.
Yes. When did you do that?
Once Deputy Preston relieved Deputy Shannon Taylor from that particular door, then both Deputy Taylor and myself exited the building and started to conduct an exterior search.
Any observations?
Nothing that I say can really stand out to me.
Well, tell us about, what does the exterior look like? And I tell you, if it helps. We could just show Commonwealth's Exhibit 3. So this is that aerial view.
Yes.
So just kind of walk us through what you did.
So this particular area here would have been the front of the building. This is where our vehicles were initially parked, and this is where we would have exited the building. So these parking lots, you have kind of employee parking, and then you almost have, it's almost like an overflow parking in this area where the tractor trailer, the trailers would be staged. So you have some woods or some tree line. You've got some kind of grassy areas, and then surrounding the building here, you've got terrain, weeds, trees, grass, tall grass, and some grade, with kind of sloped, if you will, that kind of runs away from the building in these areas here.
Did you notice any dumpsters, trash receptacles, anything like that?
Yes. So in the rear of the building, once we made ourselves or made around the exterior of the building in the back, in this area here was one of those kind of like a large roll-off dumpster that you see from time to time.
How did you inspect it? Did you open it up?
We were able to kind of climb up the side, kind of look over inside into the interior of the dumpster.
And did anything strike your attention?
There was nothing at that moment that drew any attention.
What was the weather? Do you recall the weather conditions at that time?
I know when Deputy Taylor and myself exited the building to start the search of the exterior, it was raining at that time.
Okay. After your exterior search of the surrounding area around the warehouse, did you proceed back inside the warehouse?
Yes, we did.
And what'd you do that for?
So the interior search that we did right after investigations got there, that was, again, looking into the warehouse area the best we could. And we're looking for more safety issues, if somebody was trying to hide or trying to make it as secure as possible with the doors that were open. So the second search that we conducted after we came back in from outside, a little bit more kind of a deep search, looking inside trash bins, trash receptacles, just looking for anything that would stand out, that would have any evidentiary value to it at that point.
Did anything turn up in that second search of the warehouse?
No, sir.
And was that pretty much the sum total of your involvement in the investigation?
For the most part, yes. Once that search was done, then my focus, investigations had a pretty good handle on what they were doing. At that point, I just was there mainly to take care of my guys, make sure that they were relieved, make sure if they needed any food or drink or anything that could give them relief. And again, any assistance that would be needed at all from investigations, then I could be the point of contact for the patrol guys that were there on scene.
At what point did you leave the scene? At what time did you clear?
Approximately 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I believe.
So if you got there, so there about 9 hours.
Roughly, it was decent amount of time.
Okay. One second, please. Major, if you happen to know, I know that you were relieved because your commanding officer, or a commanding officer over a criminal investigation showed up, and the protocol is the case goes to them at that point, right?
Correct.
Okay. How do they decide who becomes the lead detectives on the case? Who makes that decision?
That would have been up to Major Ben Huff and Lieutenant Jim Wagner, Rocky. They would have been the ones that would have made that decision because that's their area of expertise. So, and their protocol at the time, I can't testify to.
And the jury will hear from other witnesses. But do you know who was assigned the case?
Detective Bruce McVeigh, I believe, was assigned to the case.
And was Everett Stahl also assigned the case?
At some point, yes, he was.
Okay. Jeff? Major, I think that's all I have. Thank you. The defense may have some questions for you.
Ms. Dennison?
Not too bad.
We're having trouble trying to get the jurors to see everything and everybody to see everything. And I'm going to show you what's marked as Defendant's Exhibit 1. And essentially, it's the same thing as what's been marked as Commonwealth's Exhibit Number 3. Do you
Yes, ma'am.
recognize what that is?
It's overhead of the building.
He can stand down there if we'll make it
Okay,
easier.
I might. Well,
Whatever
first
you
of all, okay, yeah, that's a good idea. And actually, I was going to put it right up here, if nobody minds. All right. I don't know, I'm invariably going to be in somebody's way. All right.
Too dark.
Now, I want
Is
you
that
to...
okay? Can you see that? Lights back.
What?
I want the lights back. Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's difficult. I mean, we've shown quick pictures fast and all that, and I don't think, I mean, maybe everybody's picked up on it, but I've been sort of lost along the way myself. But anyway, so you came in. This road here, which you barely could see. Squinch down here. This road right here, is that Empire Drive?
Empire.
Empire?
Sorry.
Okay, yep. And it kind of goes, if you were really going through the picture, it would go, Empire Drive would be going all the way like this, is that right?
Correct.
Okay, and then if you kind of, there's a driveway that comes right through here, and you know, you get off Empire Drive, and there's the driveway, and that's how you get into Thermo Fisher, normally, correct?
That's how I did that name, yes.
Okay, and you drove up, I'm sorry, it's so hard. You drove on up and you parked somewhere. Were you in like a plain car, a regular car, a marked car, sirens, or what?
I was in a marked car. I was in uniform at the time, so I had a marked
Okay.
vehicle.
Now, how did you know where to go as far as getting in what particular door were you? How did you know where to go?
There was two officers that were on scene prior to me getting there. That was Deputy Lusty and Deputy Gregory, and the vehicles were parked down in this area here. So that's where I drove down the road from Empire Drive and came down and parked there.
Okay. Now, let's kind of talk about the facility a little bit. Now, the facility, this is the entire facility, but a little portion of this is from another company. It's called Beck & Coulter, I think you already referred to.
Yes,
right?
ma'am.
And it's like this little portion here. And so when you got there, you parked, and then you came right in this front door, right?
These are This area here is the, kind of that front entrance. There's some steps that you had to go up
Okay.
to, and then those double doors that I referenced.
Okay. And a lady you said met you, were there other people in there yet? Was there, I thought I read somewhere that there was a couple people in there first when you came to the door, or was it just one lady?
Well, she was the one that let me in. I had to ring like a bell, almost like a doorbell, that they have on the exterior that I had to push. She's just the one that came
Okay,
to me. I remember her. She's the one that I conversed with,
okay,
and then I went straight to my guy. So I cannot testify to
okay.
who else was in that room at the time.
Okay, there could have been somebody, but that wasn't your focus. Your focus was with her at the point. She opened up the door for you, and you were gonna go investigate and do what you needed to do.
Yes, ma'am.
You weren't paying attention about who specifically was there or not, correct?
At that particular time, my focus was getting to my guys.
Exactly. Okay, and what you said is, and you talked about it, you said that those guys, you know, you're talking about security. You don't know whether the person's still in the building,
The safety of the people that are remaining in this building.
but that's what I mean, you guys, anybody that's in that building, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, throughout the course of your investigation, there were a lot of doors in there. Now, when we talk about, we see these big trucks and stuff. Now, I know that there's two areas. One is a receiving area, and then there's one's a shipping area. One is they get the trucks in there and they take the stuff off and whatnot, and then this one is where they, I guess, take the stuff and put it in boxes and send it off. Is that your understanding?
As far as how their operations work,
Okay.
I would not be able to testify.
But these
to
are
that.
dock doors, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and the dock doors, there's dock doors here, and there's dock doors there.
Yes.
Did you notice whether any of these dock doors were open? Because they had two trucks there that morning.
I don't remember, and I wouldn't be able to testify. I just know that, there was a couple doors in our search, and I'm excluding where I had to post Deputy Taylor. But a couple of exterior doors that, and again, I'm saying a couple, it could have been 2, it could have been 4. I just remember that we had to secure the exterior doors as we went through. And again,
Okay.
it's quick. It wasn't like a
I totally get it.
methodical thing at this point.
Exactly. I mean, you had that one goal in mind and you got to it. Now, you said that there were, and this was later in your testimony, but you said that there was a lot of, there were cars or whatnot that you had, did you search cars? Or did you look cursorily in cars, and were they on this side?
So, yes, there was cars. This is what I would kind of consider to be the employee parking, if you will. We did what I would say would just be kind of a visual inspection of cars that were in a parking lot. I can't remember how many cars were in that lot, but Deputy Taylor and myself would just visually look inside the car, and if there was anything of interest, then we would stop, but we continued on.
And it was your understanding that nobody was going to be allowed to walk out there, prance out there, and leave in their cars. I mean, you guys would look at the cars, everything was put on hold, and nobody was getting anywhere.
To my knowledge, yes, the business was still in a kind of a lockdown state.
Right. Now, there are also on the other side of the building that this is a, I wish I had a pointer. Is there a pointer somewhere? It's so hard, I'm blocking everybody's view. I guess I should have thought of that ahead of time. So, as you go around this building here, is it like a driveway? Because it's kind of hard to see on this side, but it's a driveway that goes around, and then it exits out on Umpire Drive again, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
ultimately.
Ultimately, right. Now, this area is over at Thermo Fisher, and I see cars parked here. You searched these cars. I'm assuming you searched these cars too?
No, we did not.
Okay.
Can I make a correction on something?
Yeah,
You
sure.
said this was Thermo Fisher, and it's my recollection, this is actually Beckman Coulter on this side. This is Thermo Fisher Scientific on this side.
That's what I meant. Thermo, but a lot of it's actually, they only have a tiny little part of it.
Yeah,
Okay, that's right, but that's what I was kind of trying to say. Okay, so no cars were searched over here, at least through you, or anybody under your control, or your command, that you know of.
And again, we were just doing a quick visual.
I know. Okay. Now, are there doors, now when you said a quick visual, and what your goal was is, again, security. Are there doors, can you point to the doors, the different doors, and did you go to these different doors? All around the facility?
I don't know how many exterior doors that there are in this particular facility. I can't remember. But if there was an exterior door that was on this facility on our search, then we would have made sure that that door was secure at that point. Again, you know, from the interior, you know, you've already done this, and that's part of our exterior is, you know, doing a visual of this facility and the surroundings.
Now, how do you make a door secure?
I can testify to the doors that we did end up securing. So if you know, if you think again, if the reference, kind of like your garage door of your residence, there was two different ways that you could secure them. One was you remember, you kind of grab the handle in the middle of the door and you twist it and you kind of shove two bars into the metal rail, or some of them had a box and you just slide a rail into that, or slid the bar into the rail, and that would prevent somebody from being able to lift the door up. So that's how we would secure those doors. If we would have come across a door, a pedestrian door or something, that was unsecured, then we would have made a note of it, and we would have either gotten somebody with a key, or we would have secured it the best that we could at that point.
Did you make any notes on any of the exterior doors that were not the ones with the garage like thing? Any notes on whether or not that was open or closed? Whether it would have been secured by virtually turning what did I keep forgetting about? What's that thing when you, with your door lock? I can't think of the name of it, but.
A deadbolt.
Deadbolt, that's it, okay. With the deadbolt, I mean, did you remember that, take any notes on it? Was it just you and Shannon doing it, or just a couple of the other guys too?
At this particular moment that I know of, it was just Deputy Taylor and myself
Okay.
that was doing the search, and I don't remember making a note of someone being able to lock and unlock from the exterior.
Okay. Now, there's a door here where the break room is. Remember, I'm sure you're familiar with where the break room was?
Roughly.
Okay. And then there was another door right next to it. Do you remember anything about whether those particular doors were open, locked? What were they? Do you recall?
I don't recall.
You said that you secured the doors. If someone had testified that, or under oath, said that this door had been opened, do you recall how it was that you secured it?
Again, no, I personally don't remember a door being unsecured. But if we did run across a door that was unsecured, then we would have made every attempt to secure that the best that we could
Okay.
with what we had at the time.
But again, do you have it documented somewhere?
No.
You don't. Okay, you don't have it documented anywhere. And there's another door right next to it. And actually, the door that was right next to it led up to the steps to where the office level was. And do you recall whether or not anything with that door was open, whether it took just you could just turn the knob on it, or do you remember anything about that door?
I do not.
Okay. Now, there's a number of doors along this side, and I'm referring to the back end of the building where you go around it. There were a couple doors there. Do you have any notes or recall anything about those doors? What about the door on the end, the very back over here in the corner?
I don't have any recollection of
Okay,
it.
that's okay, that's fair. It's been a long time. Now, the compactor, and you didn't call it a compactor, you called it a dumpster. You referred to it as a dumpster. And was there a dumpster along this, you pointed here in your photograph on Commonwealth's Exhibit number 3. And is that dumpster evident in that picture?
I think this is the dumpster here. This is in the general
That's fair.
vicinity of where that dumpster was, but I believe that's it right there.
Now, how did you get into that? I mean, I'm sure it wasn't something pleasant, but did you have to climb up it? How did you get into that thing?
We didn't actually get inside.
Oh, okay.
So you can climb up the side of those. Sometimes they have just welded, metal, almost like a ladder that you can climb up, visually inspect inside, or you can just monkey up the side of it.
But that didn't have a ladder.
I don't remember. I just remember us climbing up, and you can look over the edge of it.
What were you looking for?
Anything that stood out at that point. Make sure that no one was hiding inside that dumpster. Make sure that
If they were covered up, would you know? I mean, that's kind of a little bit.
No, there was nothing visually that we saw that we investigated any further from inside the dumpster.
So what were you looking for then? Were you looking for blood? Were you looking for weapons? What were you looking for?
Really, again, this is kind of a security sweep, if you will. So we're looking for anything that would have stood out.
Nothing stood out.
No, ma'am.
But you didn't venture, did you uncover things and take your hands or a stick or something and look for anything?
No, we did not.
Okay, that's fair. Now, there's also what's called a compactor. Is there such a thing as a compactor? Or did you see a compactor on this side? Or there may or may not. I'm not.
I don't remember which side it was, but there was a compactor that was in this facility.
Okay.
That looks like that maybe it there.
Were there
It's
two?
cardboard.
Were there two? Okay.
I know there was one.
Did you look in, okay, do you recall whether you saw a compactor on this side and whether you looked in it? Actually inspected it?
There was a compactor that was in the facility. I know we looked inside of it, and that was from the interior of the building. I don't remember which side it was on.
Looking inside of it, by peering and looking, would you agree that's two different things? Peering in and/or, rummaging in it and looking? Which one did you do?
Your words, we would have just peered inside. You could walk in
Okay, that's fair.
and
That's fair, that's fair. That wasn't your goal. Your goal was to secure it, so now, okay. And there were some dock doors here too, but I don't know did you recall whether any of those were open?
again, I can't testify to exactly where the doors were. I just know that there was exterior doors that we did secure.
And I'm sorry, I don't recall the time that you said that you actually got there. When did you get there specifically? Or approximately? Go ahead.
I think around 7:30.
7:30.
Take a look.
By the time you talked and you figured things out, when was it that you actually started going around and trying to secure stuff with, Taylor?
I don't have a specific time.
Okay. I mean, 5, 10 minutes or?
It would have been after investigation showed up on the scene.
Okay.
That's when our focus would have changed and our duties would have changed because investigations would have taken over the scene at that point, and we would have started doing a sweep. So
Okay. So can you give me an estimate? Was it an hour? Was it 45 minutes? Was it 30 minutes?
I don't believe it to be an hour. I would say
Okay.
once investigations got on scene, again, I think I testified somewhere, 20, 25 minutes. It would have been shortly thereafter. Once they
Okay.
got on scene, they could have gotten
Okay.
kind of their foothold, and then
Okay.
we would have done what we had
Okay.
done.
So it was just basically you two at the time? And do you know when the other people started showing up so you could tell them what to do?
As far as specific times, no. I know that there was other people that ended up showing up because they were in different spots on the exterior. Deputy Jerome Huff, he was up in this area here, and then Major Bill Steinborn was in the back, kind of in this area here.
I'm more interested in the interior. Anybody?
Interior, I don't remember exactly who was where, other than, where we had left Deputy Preston because he relieved Deputy Taylor, and then Deputy Lusty and Deputy Gregory. Those are the only ones that I could testify to.
Okay. Fair statement to say it's huge. You said 3 football fields, huge building.
I didn't say 3 football fields.
5, 4,
It's
1?
big.
Okay. I mean, that's a huge facility. Agreed?
It's big.
Okay. And that's good. Now, I thought I heard you say something about you had to go, you had talked to Yuska, Ed Yuska, correct? And is he one of was he the fellow that's on the 911 call and had called in that he had found a body?
I
know who it
cannot
was?
testify
Well,
to that.
who did you talk to then? Who did you test? Who did?
Ed is, a gentleman by the name of Ed is who I talked to.
Okay, all right. So you don't really know what his role is? It wasn't.
He was, to my understanding, he was the plant
Okay.
plant manager.
And how did you find out who it was that you had to separate?
I made that determination based on the statements that Ed had given me at the time.
Okay, fair. All right. I think that you had said something about David was reluctant to leave the lobby. Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay. So he was in the lobby that you saw. And did you, correct?
Where I first came in contact with him, I can't remember.
Okay.
But he was in that general vicinity.
Well, there's a lobby and then there's a hallway. Was it the lobby or the hallway? You indicated today that it was the lobby that you saw him in.
I don't remember saying that I saw him in the lobby. He was in the general vicinity.
Okay.
Are you talking about Ed or David?
David,
Okay.
you had indicated your testimony, I wrote it down. He was reluctant to leave the lobby,
Okay.
all right? Okay. Now, you said that he was upset. Those were your words. A little resistant at first, and more and more people were gathering in the front lobby area, and then you said he was upset. Is that right?
David?
Yes, you testified to us that he was upset. I wrote it down.
That's what his statement was.
What did you observe? I thought you just told us about
I did not
what you
observe
observed.
him
Never
being
observed him?
upset.
Never observed him upset. So when you said that he was upset, did he tell you he was upset? Is that what you're saying?
Ed is the one that I testified that was upset.
Okay, but wasn't Dave. Now, when did those pry marks that you saw, when were those pry marks put on there?
When were they put on the door?
Uh-huh,
I cannot testify to that.
right. And when your investigation about when you went up there, you testified that those were fresh pry marks. Did you see, could you describe for the ladies and gentlemen of the jury, what kind of door was it? Was it like one of those cardboardy type doors? I can show you pictures if you want to see.
Okay.
I'll show you what's marked as. I'll show it to you just a minute. I'm just trying to mark it.
Be 5.
5, Judge, thank you. Show you what is marked as Defendant's Exhibit 5. I guess I'm going to show it to you first, and I'm going to try to do this myself too, and I don't know even how to do it.
Okay.
Is that one of those cardboardy type of doors? Don't know?
I wouldn't be able to testify to that.
And do you recall whether or not on the door, if you're trying to break into a door and you're taking that screwdriver and making fresh pry marks, did you see any of those crumbs on the floor?
Again, I can't testify to that.
Okay. Can I guess?
I think it's set up for that.
Is it all set up for
I think
me?
it is.
Is that the door you're referring to?
I believe so.
Okay. That's all. Now, I think you testified that you had told people that they weren't supposed to be using their phones, right?
I did testify to that.
Do you recall whether you saw people using their phones and then you told them to not use their phones any longer?
I would imagine that I saw people on their phones. That's why I made the request for them to stop.
That's right. So if in your statement you said you walked back to the office area and witnessed some office employees on their phones, it was then that you noticed that they'd already been on the phone, and then you told everybody stop doing it, correct?
Yes, some people had already used their phones, to my knowledge.
Okay. Okay. Did you make a list of those people who had been on their phones and wrote it down about who was using their phones and maybe providing information to the outside?
No, ma'am, I did not.
Okay.
There's only one person that I think I referenced in my memo, and that was the female that I had come across. She was the one that actually let me in the door.
Now, did you have certain areas, were you in charge of the areas where the people from the warehouse were supposed to be? In other words, they all gathered in the lobby area. Who was responsible for, moving them over or deciding where they came and went?
As far as, the command of the scene, that would have been with cooperation from the management from the warehouse, Fisher Scientific, I guess, as far as getting the employees, because I believe they had made an all call trying to gather their people.
Right.
Ultimately, that would rest
Okay.
with me.
Okay, with you? Okay.
I would have to
Okay.
take responsibility
Now,
for that.
right off that lobbyway, there's like a hallway, and that's where the office area was that you were referring to? Is that what you recall?
Best I remember.
Okay. And off of that hallway is a conference room where ultimately some of the warehouse workers were put in eventually while they're waiting to be interviewed. Does that sound right?
There was one employee that I asked to step into that and have a seat in that area. That was Ed.
Okay.
I wouldn't say there's
No.
a lot.
That's not what I was referring to. I was referring to, there's a hallway, and then there's a conference room. Do you recall? And you may not know. Was there a conference room where all the employees or some of the warehouse workers were told to sit down at?
Cannot testify to that.
Were other people up and around, moving around? Because apparently there were people in the office area. In particular, the one lady that you said, Sandy Fryman?
There might have been, inside that office area.
Right. So actually, there were a lot of people kind of milling around. That's all the questions I have. Thank you.
Okay.
Major, is it possible, once you no longer had command of the scene, that was fairly early on, correct? Where you transferred authority over to, I believe, Major Huff, correct?
It happened fairly early on.
And what they did with the employees of Thermo Fisher at that point, do you have any firsthand knowledge of?
Do not.
Did you conduct any of the interviews of the people beyond your first conversation with Ed? I'm talking about the actual investigative interviews. Did you conduct any of those?
I did not.
That's for the criminal investigative unit, correct?
Objection, Your Honor. Deleting. He's deleting.
That's right.
Is that for the criminal investigative unit?
Sustained.
Yes.
That wasn't your, was that your role?
No.
Okay.
It was not.
Now, you were asked about a number of doors that you did not document in your report. Well, in your report, you do document. Do you document doors in your report?
I do.
And why did you document those doors?
They were the doors that were specific to me that stood out. The doors that were unsecured, that we had to secure, which would have been like the bay doors, and then that door that I had to post somebody at.
Major, can we infer from that the other doors that you checked did not stand out to you?
Correct.
In other words, they were secure.
Objection to the lead.
Were they secure?
The doors that I noted in my report are the doors, and as far as the bay doors, I put in my report that we had to secure some doors that were open. Those are the doors that I, talked about as far as looking like garage doors, and then the one that kind of separates the two businesses. The other doors, nothing stood out to me.
Would being unsecure stand out to you?
Yes.
Thank you. Oh, and when you talk about, you use the, we. Well, when we checked this door, or when we checked the dumpster, the we was, who was the we you were referring to?
Deputy Shannon Taylor.
You were not referring to the entire Boone County Sheriff's Office.
Correct.
You were asked on cross-examination how you made the determination of who to separate.
Okay.
Okay, could you answer that question, please?
It was based on the statements of Ed, is who I felt like I needed to separate at that time.
Okay, and Ed's going to be a witness. We can ask him. No further questions. Thank you.
No questions. Thank you very much.
Is this witness subject to any recall?
Yes, he is.
Yes, okay. Just going to order that you do not discuss your testimony with anyone that you could be subject to recall in this matter. So just, I'm sure they have a way of getting hold of you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. But you're excused at this time.
Thank you.
approaching.
You may. Ms. Dennison or Mr. Lawson?
Yes.
We are going to take about a 10-minute break at this time, back by 5, we'll stay by 5:53. During the trial of any case, it is your duty not to formally express an opinion until the case is submitted to you, not to converse with or allow yourself to be addressed by any other person on any subject of your trial. Whether an officer, party, witness, or attorney should attempt to contact you without permission of the court, and report on lawful attempts to do so to prevail upon yourself, and read regarding any issue or any witness in the case.
You wouldn't give me the
All right.